Well, originally for Wednesday Comics, I was going to talk about Batman, The Flash, and Spider-Man. But hogging all interest is the movies at the moment for what's happening with, originally the DCEU, now the DCU under James Gunn and all of that. And amongst all the stories about who's leaving and who's going and all that was this logo that was put out there. I don't know that this is actually final, as I think the guy who initially did it took it down. But it is of some interest. And it just based on what this is, and gee, it's recognizable as something. Of course, you have the Justice League characters. You've got Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, The Flash, and Aquaman. But it's a particular pose and silhouette that's familiar to comic book readers. Well, it's Jim Lee's iteration of them at the beginning of what was called the New 52. And this was a universe-wide reboot they did as a result of Flashpoint. As it was going, it became very clear that there was no set plan. There was a lot of problems for it, most notably for Batman, which was odd because Batman is their big star. But what they did is they reset the universe. Everybody was much younger. And basically, the timeline that they were working with was that the superhero era of DC was only 5 years old. So that meant Superman burst on the scene a mere 5 years previous to the stories that were coming out. And they detailed his story in Action Comics with Grant Morrison. And it was interesting. It was kind of, there was some entertaining aspects to it. While the Superman title was in the present day under George Perez. Problem was, George Perez complained about this, saying he had no idea what was going on in Action Comics, and that was the communication breakdown of this company-wide endeavor was just pathetic, and it showed. Things just didn't make sense. They fell apart. Some were pretty good. You had some good runs here, most notably this run of Justice League that Jeff Johns and Jim Lee did. For what it was a pretty good run. It didn't last, but, and the designs, I don't really see. Jim Lee is a fantastic artist, no doubt about it. But most of the time, his designs of costumes just aren't all that great. Now, these are sort of redesigns of the classic suits and everything, but basically it was to make them all more like armor and that sort of thing. And why does Superman need armor? I don't know, but they were just... The suggestion being that it's the Kryptonian suit and all that. Got rid of his panties and Batman's panties. Which they had done to Batman before, but anyway. Batman having a suit of armor made sense, but it's just certain details that were repeated. So then you have this collar on Superman now, and it does this V-neck thing. And then Wonder Woman has this choker that's almost the same. And then here you have Green Lantern. Now he has and Aquaman does. Of course, Batman, these guys don't. So, okay. Well, maybe. Whoops. Hit the thing. Yeah, kind of a V. But anyway, as it goes, I prefer the classic look. But when Jim Lee drew Superman's outfit, it actually looked pretty good in the action of the story and all that. Wonder Woman was interesting because of the replacing the gold with silver. Well, it gave her more of a red, white, and blue look for it. They had her in pants, but they quickly got rid of that and put her. She got to keep her panties with stars and everything. So anyway, that was the redesign. Other artists, even George Perez, of course, another fantastic artist, but when he drew it, it really looked very bulky. But then again, they were telling him, hey, it's armor. The Man of Steel needs armor. So anyway, that's what they did. And so Justice League, that's the second issue. Yeah, this is the first one. So there you go. Yeah, Wonder Woman's back in her shorts and all that. And that was the redo. And it's, like I said, it was a good run. Batman's introduced. There's Wonder Woman. Superman taking on Batman. Batman doesn't really have a chance, so he's going to have to talk it out, which he does. But it's all cool stuff. Initially, in the first one, the first issue was mostly Batman and Green Lantern, because at the time, Batman, of course, was #1, the big star of DC. But at the time, the Green Lantern books were doing very well, so they didn't want to change too much of that. But if it's a whole reboot, and the timeline for Batman didn't work at all. They kept all his Robins, and said, where did he have the time to have all those stories? Within 5 years, it didn't work, and it was stupid, and they didn't think it through. And ultimately, it collapsed, and they had to try something else, and that became Rebirth, and saying, oh, the universe was manipulated by, Dr. Manhattan and all of that. But getting back to the logo look, and says, gee, why pick that? Or there's someone just slapped it up there and put studios on it, and that's what they do. Are they attempting to do the New 52 here? Because the Flash movie comes out, and all along it was talked about being based, if not loosely, on the Flashpoint storyline. And of course, what was the result of the storyline? Well, it was a big reboot, reset. And of course, they are rebooting it in some form or fashion. And but New 52 ultimately failed, but would they do this and follow it through, hopefully better, in the way it ended up? And where did it end up? Well, the young Superman, he ends up dying. And he gets replaced by his older alternate universe self, who is married to Lois and has a son with him, and comes back to take his place. And then eventually the universe is reset again, where they're all the same guys they were before. So basically they kind of went back to square one, with perhaps a few little tweaks here and there, and that's it. And so ultimately, this was all for nothing, so that would mean that when he says, "Hey, we hope to work with Henry Cavill in the future," do you mean reintroduce him later when he's even older than now, with Amy Adams and their kid? And your new Superman that you're going to introduce dies and all that. Yeah, maybe. But at least they wouldn't have all the Robins with the young Batman having had no time to have raised all these people, So, I don't know. It's quite a wild, long shot. But New 52, it had some high points. As a gimmick, it worked. Momentarily, it gave them a lot of they sold a lot at first because of the curiosity factor and all that, but it was very obvious early on that they hadn't thought it through, especially with regards to Batman, which is really bizarre because Batman is their big star. He was then, he is now, what's left of DC Comics at this point, I don't know. It really going back to that will, I guess. But even looking over this, there were some elements in there that was weaved into the Zack Snyder era. Darkseid being the impetus for Justice League, and the stuff like that. Even the mother boxes they show in this issue look similar to the designs that you see in the Zack Snyder movie. Another New 52 title was the Earth 2, the Justice Society, which they rejuvenated them. They were all younger on their own world, and that's when they first introduced Alan Scott as being gay and all that type of stuff. And Steppenwolf makes his appearance, and there he is with the horned helmet and all that sort of thing, which is, well, obviously Zack Snyder wanted him to be far more monstrous. They redesigned him for the theatrical release at the time to look more akin to the comic book version. But you see all of that having its influence into it. And well, it didn't quite work out then. To revisit it again seems odd, but it is necessary. It is a reboot template, and that is what they're doing in some form or fashion. All the screaming, wailing, and gnashing of teeth is understandable because of how beloved the actors were in those roles, and always feeling they never quite got the chance. But also compounded by the announcement that Henry Cavill was back. Well, a couple of weeks later, no, he isn't. That sort of thing. And obviously, it has to be something financial. They just can't talk about it. This idea that it's completely a creative decision, I just don't buy it. But it seems like they could have finagled some kind of deal. But New 52, yeah, it had some ups, but it was mostly downs. And I don't know, but I just thought it was kind of funny that, oh, that's how they'll bring Henry back when this guy dies. And then it's like, did he die? Because, it was the real Superman all along. They never really explained it. They just, oh, God, this isn't working. Hurry up. Hail Mary pass will excite everybody and get with curiosity again by saying Dr. Manhattan did it all. And then that kind of fizzled, too. So now they really have nothing left, But I don't know. Just pure speculation. But and it might not even be their logo going forward. They'll just take that off and leave it with the circle saying studios in the middle of it, and you're good, But it's interesting and curious.